that entrepreneurial nature within ourselves. Dan kalau kita bicara tentang that decision making process will be similar. Whatever you do.
So first of all, mungkin ada kalian yang mau introduce yourselves or?
Ya, perkenalkan kembali Dr. Irfan. Saya Arsyad. Saya juga Arsyad. Ikut diajak JJ sebenarnya, dan ini juga seminatnya itu metode lumayan baru ya dok. Concern entrepreneurship, dan kami yakin narasumber Dr. Irfan cocok diskusi ini.
Namanya apa tadi? Matt.
Medical entrepreneur ya.
Yes, Matt. Dinian, you shared to me that what used to be apa itu namanya? Bursa. Okay, so bursa not there anymore.
Masih ada. It merger with namanya Cafeteria. Dulu kan mereka like they sell F&B to student.
Kafenya nggak ada lagi.
During COVID they shut down. Tapi jadi ujungnya they merged too, and then now we're broadening the scope of business lah. So not only F&B, but also entrepreneur. Not only F&B and selling medical equipment or books, but also to let's say building startups or building medical related businesses.
Okay. Good.
Perkenalkan dok, nama saya Justin. Minarta bisa panggil Justin dok. Actually, I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you today dok, since you're very successful. Thank you for the opportunity dok.
Thank you.
Perkenalkan dok, nama aku Brian. Kalau aku itu lebih ingin tahu dokter tuh akademik karirnya gimana, dari misalnya dari awal kuliah, kok jadi sekarang tuh bagaimana. Dia kan dokter Irfan tuh udah jauh banget lah hitungannya.
Udah tua maksudnya.
Udah dok.
Oke.
Salam kenal Dr. Irfan. Saya sebetulnya bukan mahasiswa lagi, jadi saya lulusan
Sorry.
Dan di sini ya sangat beruntung lah bisa ketemu sama Dr. Irfan. Saya juga ada kesempatan bisa di approach sama Justin, meskipun kita beda jauh lah, kurang lebih hampir 10 tahun. Tapi Justin orangnya memang sangat outgoing, sangat sociable, dan ada rasa ingin tahu begitu dok. Jadi dari situ ya saya juga hormati Justin, dan ya udah akhirnya kita ada mutual respect lah gitu. Saat ini saya sih lebih di bagian manajemen klinik rehab medik. Kita bikin di Bogor. Habis itu untuk my main line of business itu di seragam medis.
Di mana?
Jadi kita bikin seragam medis SCRB. Itu,
yang scrub itu ya?
Ya betul.
Iya.
Jadi saya tuh mulai bisnis kurang lebih tahun 2020.
Oke.
Ya, jadi waktu lagi COVID itu sendiri juga karena memang saya ngerasa waktu COVID tuh saya gak ada terdepan gitu, kerasa lah pakai hazmat berapa belas jam. Dari situ memang sebelumnya baju yang standar ya monopoli lah, dua saudara lah gitu kan. Dari situ kita berinovasi, bikin sesuatu yang bisa diterima market, ya udah sampai saat ini kita ada loyal following.
Disposable atau?
Bukan, kita yang washable. Jadi kita sih lebih approach-nya sebagai kayak medical fashion ya. Jadi kita menempatkan diri brand kita bukan hanya sebagai formal uniform, tapi lebih kayak fashion approach-nya. Sekarang kita mulai transisi exiting COVID, kita mulai mendekati day-to-day wear. Seperti itu. Mungkin dari pertemuan ini saya mau mendengar pengalaman Dr. Irfan di lapangan seperti apa, kira-kira kesulitan apa, atau misalkan insight apa sih yang bisa didapatkan dari kesulitan-kesulitan tersebut. Terima kasih banyak.
Well, I need to learn from you.
Salam kenal, saya Alfian dok. Ya bisa dibilang salah satu member yang paling muda lah bareng Brian, baru tahun 2023. Dan ya saya sebenarnya ikut NetN juga karena tertarik dengan bisnis di dunia medis gitu kan. Mungkin ya di kesempatan kali ini juga saya ingin berterima kasih karena bisa meluangkan waktu buat kita. Mungkin nanti bisa berdiskusi bersama juga gitu ya.
Thank you.
Perkenalkan dok, my name is Justin Jaya, ini ada Justin Minarta. saya sebagai ketua Medical Entrepreneurs. And today, Dr. pernah mengajak untuk small group discussion, so I think that we can learn from doctor's experience, especially dengan doctor's specialty in running a hospital as well as making a successful clinic business. Jadi itu mungkin dari bidangnya, more specifically to the clinic business that I would like to learn from doctor, because I'm also trying to build my own hormone therapy clinic in the future.
Oke, selamat kenal dok. Perkenalkan aku Christopher Adi, bisa panggil Adi. Aku sebenarnya sama Brian sama Alfian, aku nih anggota baru juga ya. Sama tadi Matt Anthony juga baru juga ya. Sama aku sih sebenarnya penasaran aja sih dok, karena tadi aku nggak sempet kepingin datang ke sini, tapi pas Justin ajak dan aku dengar kalau narsumnya Dr. Ivan, langsung kepingin gitu ya. Soal sama juga ini sih penasaran, similar juga sama kayak Brian juga sama Justin. Aku sebenarnya penasaran aja lebih ke penasaran sama perjalanan karir dokter aja sih. Jadi kayak ya itulah dengan PPDS sama bisnis kayak how to manage kayak sampai di umur segini. Gitu. Kayak itu aja sih penasarannya. Ya,
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. Mungkin saya juga sedikit introduction ya. Jadi, saya itu started off my career back in the year that you were not born lah. Mungkin sudah. Saya tahun 90 saya masuk kedokteran. Mungkin kalau kalian kenal saya sama Prof. Iko. Saya satu Prof. Budi Weko, saya satu angkatan. Kemudian maybe ada just Prof. Ponco, he's my junior, about my age. Jadi itulah umur saya di situ. Dan when I started my career, I think during the first year or two, obviously the conditions are completely different what you guys have now. And back then, the opportunity to look at career aside from being a clinician as a medical graduate was probably the only, if not, probably the only option that we had at the time. Memang ada teman saya yang, I don't know whether you know, Dr. Renan, he's the head of cardiology society. He's now, I think, director di RSCM kalau nggak salah. So he was my friend, was my colleague at school, but he was actually brave enough to take double degree. Smart enough to take double degree to begin with. He took medical school, but also he took nuclear physics di ITB.
Wow.
I don't know how he did that, but he did it. Tapi ended up memang dia ada mundur setahun atau 2 tahun dari saya. But I think that's what he wanted. For me, I think to define my career option at the time was primarily sort of focus on being a clinician to start off. Tapi I was pretty much like you guys, was quite curious about so many things. I remember the time when I started my first year, kalian masih first year ya?
First year.
Kalian udah second year. Jadi my first year, this is my time schedule. 6 a.m. I don't know what time we go to the class. So 7 o'clock now these days.
8
Yeah, it's pretty nice. So I mencar dulu about 6:30. I have to right in front the di belakangnya anatomi itu ada kimia betul. Waktu itu masih bareng sama anak ekonomi sama anak FKG gitu. Jadi masih agak seger kalau kita nungguin akhirnya gitu ya, karena masih banyak kelihatan orang-orang yang nggak pakai baju dokter gitu. Jadi begitu kita jam 6, setengah 7 mulai kuliah jam 7, selesai biasanya jam 1 waktu itu. Jadi jam 1, tapi jam 1 itu saya karena masih di Salemba, it's quite easy for me to actually to have some easier afternoon because most of my friends at the time doing a lot of things like investing, ada bursa, ada kafe, ada yang science apa namanya, adalah macam-macam. Itu nggak ada karena belum ada karena at the time sanat. Waktu itu memang our options of extracurricular activities was not really that attractive anyway. and then after that kan udah banyak activity yang saya buat siang itu agak kosong gitu. Agak kosong loh, artinya ya most of my friends are going to study, saya play around doang. Jadi saya bilang, okay, I want to do something a bit more productive nih. So I was quite curious about what are the things that I can do if I'm not only convinced that I wanted to become a doctor in the first place. So what I did was, I have a lot of friends who actually, kalian tahu Radio Prambors kan? So I used to actually play for them band. Jadi kalau kalian tahu namanya ada radio Prambors Top 40 kan, bisa kamu siapa pakai. Tapi kalau sekarang tuh nama bandnya Ada Band. Jadi atau Ada Band.
Oh.
Itu bacanya. Hai, halo, how are you? Oh, sininya kurang, satu sini.
Jadi dulu yang sekarang jadi Ada Band dulu Om?
Iya, ini. Tapi at the time saya bilang I still wasn't really sure at the time whether that's something that I want to do. Jadi saya bilang, oke lah, saya coba-coba aja buat siang. Saya ketemu sama teman-teman saya di Prambors sambil jam 1 pulang, saya ke Prambors jam 2, jam 3, and then saya bilang sama teman-teman di situ, I have interest in artistic things, so I like to draw pictures and also like to do a lot of anything related to technology. Jadi waktu itu saya bilang ada 3-4 orang teman saya, satu graphic designer, satu lagi dia public kayak marketing communication. Habis itu satu lagi dia ahli computer design. Jadi ada satu benar artisnya, satu computer designer, satu lagi so saya bilang sama mereka, kita bikin graphic design company. Jadi waktu itu saya dari jam 3 sampai jam 5 saya ngurusin graphic design company saya. This is one of my early ventures in entrepreneurship. Tapi pada saat itu saya bilang, oke, apakah memang sesuatu yang di luar dari medical itu akan bisa menjadi produktif untuk my long term career? Kalau melihat ke belakang, saya rasa mungkin it wasn't really the best choice. Kalau lihat dari sisi in my future career atau barangkali my future mungkin all the things that I'm currently doing. But having said that, when we engage with so many things, we start to learn about things that is not coming. That actually gives you a much wider horizon. Buat saya waktu itu belajar Inggris dengan orang, belajar mencat orang, belajar rekrut orang, belajar juga dibohongin orang. That's all the things that you eventually will start to engage. Dan ini yang memang as we go along, because I went along at the time, saya decide, okay, after a year or two, I decided that I want to go back to the jalur utamanya lagi. I want to understand a little bit more if I can go deep into medicine. Karena menurut saya pada saat itu memang the career yang mungkin di depan mata saya adalah menjadi seorang clinician. So I decided on that. To make the decision is one of the career-changing decision that I think you guys need to take that to a point when you decide you want to become an entrepreneur. Probably have. It is, I want to become an entrepreneur. That means you need to make a decision. But to get to that point, you need to build up your, I think your background, your knowledge, your network, and everything until you decide that this is what you want to do. You know, tentu saya bilang no. At the time, my decision was that I want to go deep into the clinical part, and then let the flow takes its place later on. Jadi pada saat tingkat 6, saya udah ngurusin sebagai manajer. Kalian ada acara Summit Fiesta nggak ya? Kemarin saya dengar ada Summit Fiesta ya? Siapa yang bikin acara Summit Fiesta? Ada kayak acara band apa-apa sekarang juga ada.
Acara
Katanya deh, saya pernah.
Dulu kalau FD mungkin ada, tapi kalau FK specifically I don't think so.
I was the first one to actually ngumpulin teman-teman untuk kita bisa membuat acara itu untuk ngumpulin pendanaan buat FK. I think kita cuma punya Summit Fiesta 1 sama Summit Fiesta 2. Yang Summit Fiesta pertama itu kita ngajak Sven, kita ngajak atau kalian kenal pengadai Wake, habis itu ada Faisal M termasuk Java Jai. Habis itu sama dari ini, dari ada main jazz dari UK gitu. Aku kerjasama sama British Council. Ya, jadi waktu itu saya bilang oke, kita gila aja deh. Pokoknya kita mau belajar buat cari duit, buat sanat waktu itu. Tapi still ini hanya untuk empowering my knowledge lah, sama punya experience buat kalau kita mau cari duit sendiri itu seperti apa gitu. Karena kan kalau kita mau entrepreneur kan salah satu yang kita mesti ini kan adalah cuma kita mesti mikir-mikir tahu resources paling penting kan modal. Jadi kalau modal cuma punya otak doang ya mungkin nggak akan bisa jalan gitu. Jadi kita tetap mesti cari uang sendiri. Jadi pada saat itu saya bilang ini bisa jadi pengalaman dan itu jadi apa ya, mungkin semacam kayak learning curve buat saya sebagai clinician yang memang ujung akhirnya adalah I need to come to the point saya itu mau terus jadi clinician atau saya mau jadi mungkin bahas sedikit dari clinician. Itu waktu saya tingkat 6 dan decide saya mau ke dalam aja deh, saya udah cukup banyak pengalaman dari saya bikin entrepreneurship segala macam, saya mau lebih dalam lagi. Terus pada saat itu saya mau lebih dalam lagi dan saya bisa pergi ke luar negeri. Itu saya apply untuk mengambil specialist training di Australia. Jadi I spent 10 years in Australia as a specialist, trainee, terus jadi specialist in lebih lain. Di situ aku ambil bayi tabung, di situ praktek di sana. Terus decided that kayaknya saya mau pulang karena di Indonesia. Don't get me wrong, a lot of your friends actually have already flown to US atau di UK, Australia. Living overseas is really quite stable. It's good. You have a good career pathway and situation. Tapi the opportunity for you to shine di luar negeri, karena semua orang rata-rata mereka ya average-nya segitu-gitu aja. So you won't be able to get the opportunity to have us as an entrepreneur. You guys have to see what others don't.
Yeah.
And sometimes creativity can be seen not far away from craziness. Some people say, okay, this is really quite creative. Some people say, why would I want to do that? Buat saya pergi ke luar negeri itu salah satu hal yang mungkin you have to take that risk, tapi calculate that risk. At the same time, pada saat saya mau pulang ke Indonesia, I have to take that risk when I come back home that I may not be successful. Okay? Jadi itu tuh satu hal yang menurut saya penting untuk kita bisa lihat, do we have that entrepreneurial nature within ourselves. Dan kalau kita bicara tentang that decision making process will be similar. What I mean. Dan misalnya katakan aku mau bikin bisnis apa atau kopi lah apa gitu. At some point, you have to decide this business photocopy. You already assess this is good. You're happy and you have passion to do that. At some point, kalau bisnis fotokopi jadi nggak jalan, you have to also make a call. This business is not, creating anything or at least going in the right direction. Two ways of doing that. Number one, keep pursuing. You still have that belief. You still have that passion within. You still have the engine within your pocket. Itu penting kan?
Iya, pasti.
Secondly, you decide, okay, you have to make a call. Sakit, waduh, nggak berjuang, ini sacrifice segede segala macam, but you have to make that call. Sometimes you have to go backwards to take the leap 2 to 3 steps. Nah, itu yang saya putuskan untuk pulang ke Indonesia. I have to take that risk, and I'm willing to sacrifice my time in Australia to go to Indonesia. Itu ke sini. Nah, pada saat ke sini, it turned out to be that was the best decision that I ever made, because kalau kita melihat di Indonesia, apa yang saya lihat itu, ingat banget, saya pulang dari Australia itu dari atas pesawat. Okay, here we go. I told my wife, and saya bilang, you're gonna come home, and we'll come home successful. You have to have that commitment first. And to be successful, and you have to, at least, you have to have a big picture first. Dan pada saat itu saya bilang, if I want to be successful, what do I need, what I can do to be different. Karena when you are trying to sell something, I think you might already knowledge a lot of things about what we call a value proposition. Jadi pada saat and I didn't know anything about value proposition at the time. I just thought, okay, I have to do something. I made myself a bit different to what other doctors are offering. And then I know that there is a structure to it. There's a way of thoughts. Jadi pada saat saya bilang, okay, I want to pursue my interest in the field of reproductive medicine. And I started to understand about the whole landscape of this reproductive field industry. Karena pada saat itu yang namanya, sekarang juga mas, pada saat itu pasien-pasien Indonesia yang namanya berobat, kalau udah yang high tech, yang mahal segala macam, tendensi adalah mereka akan fly over to Singapore, mostly Singapore. And I recall at the time when I came back, 80% of my patients, pada saat saya bilang, okay, ibu, program IVF ya, tabung ya, 80% would either decline or disappear. Artinya the trust was not there.
Yeah.
The other 20%, mingling around, uncertain, unsure, and only 2% ended up committing themselves to have treatment with me. But I knew at the time that I need to build a good product to begin with. What is my product?
The IVF treatment service.
Services, that's right. Because my objective is to provide the patients with an outcome that the patient is willing to accept. Yang namanya IVF itu, I don't know whether you're aware, angka keberhasilan kehamilan untuk program bayi tabung itu only about 45 to 50%. So another 50 to 55% of the patients would not fall pregnant. So it's not about the product of getting the patients to get pregnant, but the product itself for me is about the service to get the patients comfortable with what they are paying. Same thing with entrepreneurs. Pada saat kita bicara tentang offering service, offering clothing.
That's right.
Pada saat kita bicara tentang offering suatu produk, then you have to accept bahwa ada certain expectation dari community yang pasien itu atau customer lah dalam hal ini, mereka harus accept. So dari kacamata saya, untuk bisa customer itu happy dengan what they pay, and I need to really provide a strong differentiator what I provide to them and also what my competitors are providing. At the time, it's a lot easier karena most of the doctors at the time were not communicating. Most of the doctors were not prepared to spend time with their patients. Many are very successful doctors at the time, and I don't know whether some doctors are still doing it or not now, but many of the doctors are still treating patients as what you see in rumah sakit RSUD di mana Tawongan apa segala macam, di mana kalau masuk ke ruang poliklinik dokter itu biasanya dokternya satu, pasiennya 3.
The number, like they want to have as many patients as possible.
Number, not they want to. Sometimes they just don't have that option. Because kalau enggak, pasien bisa 200, 300. Why? Because supply-nya lebih rendah dari demand. Okay. So this is baru masuk ke ekonominya nih. So at the time kita bicara tentang if you can create supply, then the demand is going to be really quite big. But before you start to look into the providing the supply, you need to understand whether the demand is potential there. Jadi saya bilang, oke, kalau saya mau mensupply pasien fertility dengan program bayi tabung, then I need to set up a good product. Saya spend 1, 2, 3 tahun membangun untuk produk bayi tabung secara fundamental, which basically itu berkaitan dengan infrastructure sistemnya, training orangnya, how to educate the customersnya, and so on. Jadi pada saat saya mengeducate nurse-nya, mengeducate doktersnya, kan saya mesti tahu ilmunya dong.
Pasti.
Ya kan? As a doctor, then you need to know the ilmunya sebagai dokter dong. And that's the reason why menurut saya in my field having the knowledge of the medical product yang we are selling would be helpful. But in this day and age, kalau kita melihat mungkin dengan informasi begitu luas, kita nggak harus tahu terlalu dalam banget, karena in management, as an entrepreneur, you also need to manage yourself and manage the business, right? But when you already start to look into the organization, ideally, some knowledge is good. Too much knowledge kadang-kadang malah bikin organisasi kita mati. Karena apa? Everything will be done by yourself.
Yeah.
And all of the things that other people are doing are wrong. But at the beginning, pada saat bisnis kita cuma 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 orang, that's enough. Kerja sendiri, we have to know everything. But once the business started to become big, then you need to start developing a proper professional organization, which not dependent to the person or the founders. Jadi pada saat itu saya bilang, oke, saya buat infrastrukturnya, saya tahu ini segala macam, tapi as the business grow faster, pada saat itu Morula bagian dari rumah sakit Bunda. Morula itu cuman treat sekitar 100 pasien setahun selama 10 tahun, dari tahun 95 sampai 2005. Aku balik tahun 2005. Setiap tahun cuma treat 100 pasien setahun. We call it cycle. So 100 cycle per tahun. Pada saya bilang this is not good enough. Because in Australia, a little clinic that I manage in Darwin, this is up in the northern top end in Australia, small population, 150,000 people there, but they do still now about 300 cycles per year. Itu 150,000 populasi, 300 cycles. Indonesia yang waktu itu 200 juta plus, cuma 100 cycle per tahun. So what do you see as an entrepreneur?
I see that there is a proven product, a proven service, and then it hasn't been replicated or done yet in Indonesia. at the optimal level.
Yeah. What do you see?
That there's of course a potential.
A gold mine,
Yeah.
right? So you need to be. My dad used to tell me, Pan, you know what? Number one, kalau kamu sudah berada ke dalam mana, if you want to be good in doing that, keep dive deeper and deeper and deeper. You be good at it. Don't worry about it. But you'll be the best in doing what other people cannot do. But that all very much dependent to you. Kalau kamu nggak jalan dulu lagi, then artinya, the only way to do that is just to teach other people. But that's not scalable. And in startup you have two assets, right?
Financing from the investors.
Speed and scalable.
Oh yeah.
So you have to be really quick and then you also have scalability. You can't do that if you go too deep. But if you swim up there, you see a wider horizon. Nah, situ baru kita lihat, okay, saya udah tahu ada satu bidang nih. Maybe I can learn a little bit more about this, I can learn a little bit more about that, understand a little bit more about that. You don't have to go too much deep, because otherwise you go busy and swimming up and then go to another place, go deep again, go up again. You don't need to do that. But as long as you have your mind, untuk working structure di kepala kita, bagaimana kita mau itu that's good enough. Jadi pada saat saya bilang okay, kalau I'm happy to focus my interest in this area, then I need to build an organization which eventually this organization will need to be independent from my expertise. Of course, at the time I still have the best pregnancy rate di Morula juga mungkin di amongst my peers lah. I still have a reasonably good pregnancy rate. That means my product as a person is good. But this is not a practice for Dr. Irfan. This is not a business for me practicing. This is a business that will require tens, if possible hundreds of other Dr. Irfan. Right?
Yes.
Jadi to do that, then you have to have other people to actually help you to develop this to become a system. Jadi itu yang membuat saya ya tentu dengan saya engage dengan orang, saya engage dengan ada new people yang not coming from my background, saya bisa kenal dengan orang ekonomi, saya bisa kenal dengan orang accounting, saya bisa kenal dengan orang lawyer, legal, bisa kenal orang investment. Itu karena memang pada saat kita sudah mulai membuat organisasi itu profesional, we start to engage in a process what we call as networking. And that networking is very important. Networking, you have to look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 orang. Can you imagine if all these circles try to share each other's mobile phone? Dari kita punya ada potential dari kontak. Can you imagine how many contacts would that be that potentially you can use as a new network? Maybe I can engage. I don't have to know. Okay, Hari, I may be interested in knowing your friend or your friends. When the alphabet starts with N. Why N? N seems like a very good number now we're coming to November. Okay, then I can probably share something that to promote something. We're in November, we're giving discounts to all friends with the name starts with N. That's just ideas, right? But again, that's something that you always want to continue to elaborate, and networking will help you to create new ideas. Jadi pada saat saya ngomong dengan accounting, dengan finance guys, atau dengan orang macam-macam gitu, kita bisa ngerti apa sih yang menjadi mungkin bisa membantu untuk help out our business to become more successful. But at the same time, you also have to be careful as well, because networking sometimes can create friction, and you have to be prepared. Nah, pada saat kita bicara all this beautiful landscape, all the flowers, bunga-bunga, segala macam, what you don't see is the headache behind it. And that's something you have to be prepared. Karena bicara soal entrepreneurship, it's all about taking the risk. I like to share my part. Kalau saya masih lecture tuh ada satu gambar, ada pulau, ada tambang, terus seseorang nyebrang di sini bawahnya banyak buaya. And then you use his kayak rod gitu berjalan di tambang situ. The question is, are you that person right in the middle, or are you the person who are still thinking about you want to go across that line? Karena as an entrepreneur, if you're already right in the middle, there's no turning back. You have to make that call before you start going into the line. But before you go into the line, make sure you have to mungkin rencana itu well calculated. So to sum up my long story, to sum up this, I think it's important for you to go deep as for me, go deep as something that you will learn as you go along as a medical student. But you can start engaging with new experience by having new networks, and then you can understand what can you build as as the career pathway, becoming clearer. Whether clinical work is going to be something that you'd be interested in doing, which don't get me wrong, is perfect perfect pathway lah untuk most of the clinicians studying medicine. But if you decided to go into another pathway to become an entrepreneur, it's not a bad way to consider as well. But it's extremely important for you to make a justified decision and make a really proper calculation sebelum kita ngambil langkah itu. Once you decided, there's no turning back. Only if I could do this for them. Jangan pernah nyesel. Karena you will fall at some point. Nah, kalau kita punya ada buffer yang kuat, fall won't hurt. Tapi tetap fall adalah fall. Jatuh tetap sakit gitu. So that will be my message.
First of all, thank you Dok for your long message, but very insightful. We learned quite a lot. Sebelumnya mungkin we can introduce first. Ini ada Ardan, Arya.
Ardan.
Maybe you can introduce yourself a bit.
Okay. Halo, perkenalkan nama saya Aryan Nurana Sudajat. Biasa dipanggil Ardan, kebetulan karena namanya sama kayak Arsy, jadi biar ada pembeda. Terus sekarang di MedEd sebagai Vice Head buat networking.
Nice.
Okay. So before that, perhaps anyone want to ask any questions to Doctor?
Semuanya. Okay. Oh ya, jadi mungkin tadi dokter sempat mention tentang networking kayak bisa ngebuat friction ya. Mungkin bercerita tentang pengalaman terbaru saya karena sekarang saya sedang running candidating buat the next regulatory person for Alpha Indonesia. Kayak I just want to ask kayak until now I expand my network like from the whole Indonesia, dari representative and everyone. Tapi banyak orang yang mempunyai kepentingan masing-masing yang ada, dan mungkin ada beberapa dari mereka punya kepentingan yang sama, dan menurut saya mereka kayak semua dari orang yang menjadi network saya itu adalah aset yang penting bagi saya ke depannya. Lantas ke depannya mungkin gimana sih Dok? Istilahnya kayak kita bisa satisfy semua orang dengan pilihan yang akan kita buat kalau misalnya kita
sudah menjadi apa yang kita tahu. Misalkan kayak saya bisa menjadi seorang pemimpin, terus saya punya jabatan dan orang yang mendukung saya punya interest di jabatan yang sama itu. Misalnya ada 2 orang yang interest yang sama. Gimana saya bisa menyenangkan semua orang tapi tanpa membuat hard feelings between all of them?
That's a very good question. Karena being a doctor, you are trained to be nice people. Okay, but you have to understand bahwa yang namanya in the real world cannot please everyone. Jadi memang dalam hal ini you have to ensure, kalau menurut saya yang namanya network itu adalah sesuatu yang memang mutually respectful dan mutually beneficial. But there's no point kalau kita cuma makanin orang lain. And I believe that greatly bahwa relationship in business, we have to rely that business based on mutual respect, dan itu hanya kembali kepada ada yang kalau nanti kalian kenal namanya business ethics. Itu bukan hanya di medical ethics ini, di business ethics juga ada. Karena once you do really bad in maintaining relationship with your business partner or your clients or something, then it will become a very bad reputation when you want to engage in another new network. Misalnya, saya ambil contoh, in real world lah, misalnya katakanlah as a doctor, I work as a cardiologist, you work as a cardiologist juga. Saya tuh kurang jaga dong, cara praktek. Saya nggak bisa praktek. Ini pada saat saya praktek, pada saat Anda lagi jagain praktek saya, terus Pak bilang sama pasien, Dr. Ivan salah tuh obatnya. Okay. So that would be a very bad reputation to you in front of my patients and in front of me. That create a friction, at the very least, menjadi trust issue. And that's not a very good way of establishing it. Kira-kira kayak gitu.
Perhaps I could share a bit regarding what you said when networking, and especially like I said, the adding value to both sides. Because if your person is selfish, no one wants to network with you as well. And it only takes one time for the trust to be diminished or the reputation, especially in business. Because when you're doing business with, let's say, important people who have fast networking, if they know that you can't be trusted, let's say you scam them out of a business, or let's say you publicly shame them or whatnot, none of their circle would want to interact with you as well. So that really would impact how you would network.
But that's the challenge being doctor. And as I said, we are trained to be nice people. Kadang-kadang kita yang dibodoh-bodohin sama orang. Dan itu in business, you have to be really quite practical as well of how you want to judge your relationship, whether that is you are trying to be as mutually respectful from both ends, but is not treated the same way from the other end. Because what they want to do is just to make most of their relationship. So ini yang mungkin that's mungkin dari sisi mungkin pengalaman tapi the frameworknya adalah you have to understand that networking is very important for your career going forward, relationship going forward, but also in the business if you are engaging with other people.
Any other questions?
Great, thank you Doctor for the insight. And I actually have a couple of questions. So mungkin question yang aku pengen sampaikan ini mungkin ada beberapa yang pikiran juga. Sampai tadi juga sempat ngobrol sama Arsha, ngobrol sama Kesha juga. Jadi sebenarnya aku time frame-nya yang bingung. Kayak misalkan aku dokter tadi kepingin jadi clinician awal-awal kan. And kepingin tiba-tiba dokter dalam throughout your journey, dokter pengen jadi entrepreneur. Dan sebenarnya aku bingung time frame-nya. Aku aja join MedN aja udah, menurut aku udah, the first decision to be an entrepreneur kan. And pas aku cerita ke mama aku dan papa aku bilang, mah, emang serius nih mah, aku bakal PPDS dan sampai aku umur 30-an and I will start the business, as a business kayak, kamu udah deh, kamu jangan peduli kayak gitu aja deh, kamu fokus belajar aja kayak kakak kamu, karena kakak aku ada 2, cowok semua dan FK semua dong, dan aku rasa kayak kalau misalnya aku tunggu dari PPDS
Pak ibunya dokter juga?
Papa aku dokter.
So typical.
Dan aku rasa kalau misalkan sampai umur 30 nih serius nih 33 anak cowok benar-benar jadi clinician yang benar-benar belajar doang sampai umur 30 baru dapet duit. Terus kayak kesannya bukan kesan dependable sih. Tapi lebih tepatnya this going gitu loh. Aku rasa mungkin pathway yang di ini nama orang tua aku mungkin bisa aja pun yang dikit gitu. Aku rasa gitu. Yang itu pertama kayak I want to be entrepreneur. Ini first stepnya aku jadi entrepreneur. And itu dulu. And then ini question sih dok. Aku lebih bingung sama tadi sebenarnya Jackson dibilang dari tadi aku pengen buat klinik kan. Dokter bilang sendiri, if you want to be entrepreneur, apalagi bikin medical business itu tuh harus punya background knowledge di department itu. And especially aku kenapa pikir kayak menjadi entrepreneur ini di tengah kita ujian, di tengah kita koas, di tengah macam-macam, kita harus lebih waktu untuk ngurus bisnis ini. Dan aku bingung tuh, where can I start if I don't have any basic knowledge? And apakah boleh kita buat non-medical business? Gitu. Jadi menurut saran dokter gimana kalau misalkan I have no medical knowledge? Kayak dokter bilang tadi kan, if you want to be great at entrepreneurship, you have to see what other people will think and kompetitif gitu. How can I actually start knowing that I don't have any knowledge regarding any medical person also? Bisa nggak sih aku di tengah-tengah aku jadi anak kuliah gitu kan, gitu aku bikin non-medical business just to learn about how to actually run business. Itu sudah pertanyaan.
Kalau saya boleh ini ya, kan it's unfair for me to make any assessment not knowing what the apa namanya yang mungkin the activities you guys are involved with now with what I see from Kesha atau Kiran, my son. It's like so very busy. Study. At the time I didn't remember I was studying that hard. But again, karena mungkin ya karena saat ini aktivitinya jauh lebih pas misalnya. Tapi kalau saya lihat, you have to be clear about what your intention is, because when you're trying to do something and you are in the process of learning, the intention for you to become a doctor. The intention for you to do your medical study is because you want to become a doctor to begin with. Correct? And then that part is something that you need to put as a first objective, first priority. Whatever you do, in my opinion. Karena you're spending your time, you're spending your money, parents' money, you're spending at least your effort to become a doctor. That again, for me ya, kalian bicara menjadi seorang sarjana, baik itu S.Ket maupun S1, is not only about you wanting to become a clinician, but number one, it's about you define how your brain thinks logically. Pernah dengar nggak banyak orang IPB yang jadi direktur bank?
Iya.
Pernah dengar nggak orang ITB yang jadi menteri kesehatan? Jadi menurut saya sekolah itu adalah untuk mendefine kita punya logic berpikir. Tapi karena kita akan menjadi dokter, you do have that privilege that you kalau menjadi dokter bisa memberikan treatment kepada pasien. Dan itu professional leverage yang dari kacamata kalian untuk bisa mendapatkan karir yang independen terhadap employer itu ada pada dokter. Mau mati kayak apa segala macam kalau udah punya DR atau punya SIP, buka tempat praktek juga. Ya pada saat bicara tentang medical intervention, prinsip-prinsip ekonomi, prinsip-prinsip dagang, bilang gitu kan. Sehingga bukan kita hitung-hitungan, tapi Anda juga bisa ngerti bagaimana caranya balance antara yang sifatnya mungkin untung dan rugi.
Because it's important to make sure that, because the business at the core is offering a service or value to their customer, right?
Yeah.
And if the economics don't work, then the business don't last. Then ujungnya bisnisnya bangkrut, and you can't keep offering the same service, right? Yeah. So make sure that the money works, because you have to pay staff, you have to pay the doctors, so the whole system can work. And that's something that us doctors don't learn at all secara umum. Jadi kayak
saya waktu lulus dulu ya di Australia, saya waktu itu disuruh ambil management course. Saya bilang, ngapain repot-repot ambil management course segala macam. Tapi baru tahu bahwa pada saat saya praktek sebagai private practitioner di Australia, I have to hire my own nurses, I have to hire my own medical secretary, admin staff. I have to rent space to run my clinic. Nggak seperti sini, kalau dokter sini kan pergi ke rumah sakit, dokter kasih Snelly, ini segala macam, TikTokan segala macam gitu. Sana enggak, you have to pay your own tax, you have to pay. Jadi belajar manajemen sebagai praktisi private di Australia itu sangat diperlukan karena you need to balance between what you be getting, i.e. revenue, and also what you are paying, i.e. expenses. Jadi kan ini ilmu ekonomi ini kan basic ya, tapi menurut saya penting karena pada saat nanti kalian lulus dan kalian bisa selama belajar di medan ini untuk tahu bagaimana mengukur financial health dari kita punya aktivitinya. Menurut saya itu satu hal yang akan sangat membantu. Dulu waktu SMA expose nggak sih sama apa namanya accounting, suruh ekonomi?
No.
Sama sekali enggak ya?
Biasanya
I hated it. Honestly, that's one of the apa namanya subject dan waktu saya SMA dulu saya paling malas apa. So that's why I chose to become a doctor. But it turned out to be that's actually the most important aspect that will cater any kind of profession that you are doing. Dan I think ketiga nih yang kalau kalian nanti medical recruiter yang kalian bisa pakai kalau mau belajar yang basic ya di financial for dummies. Satu, you have to understand about balance sheet. Tahu balance sheet nggak? Neraca. Okay. Secondly, you have to understand how to calculate and read the P&L. Tahu nggak P&L? Profit and loss, tambah rugi. Okay. Yang ketiga, cash flow. Pegang tiga itu aja, you'll be successful. Karena ekonomi itu sisi doang. Akunting bicara tentang hari ini dan masa lalu, finance hari ini dan
masa depan.
Tapi semua basisnya cuma tiga, neraca, P&L, sama cash flow. Itu kalau memang ini nggak usah dalam-dalam, nanti juga belajar
Iya.
semua ekonomi, belajar caranya ngebayar orang ekonomi buat kerja buat kita gitu.
Kita cari spesialisnya,
Nah,
delegate the
makanya,
task.
tapi jangan sampai kita nggak tahu apa-apa kalau nggak dibohongin.
Iya,
Makanya dok, kan tadi dok sudah cerita, dok udah berkecimpung di dunia entrepreneur itu udah dari awal-awal banget. Aku sendiri tuh berencana pas liburan, khususnya itu aku pengen fokus bikin footwear brand sendiri. Nah aku penasaran kalau misalnya footwear brandnya, aku misalnya desain sendiri, jadi mungkin produksi samplingnya juga agak lama. Aku penasaran footwear,
as in shoes.
iya,
Yeah,
shoes.
okay.
Lebih ke lifting sih, lifting
Okay.
shoes itu. Kemudian aku penasaran kalau misalnya itu kan liburan tuh cuma 2-3 bulan sih paling. Nah aku penasaran kalau misalnya tentunya kan nggak cepat bikin brand sendiri. Aku penasaran kalau aku sudah masuk kuliah nanti cara aku nge-balance itu nanti gimana. Dan kalau udah sukses ini pastinya fokusnya kebagi kan. Nah kapan saya itu bisa nentuin, oh saya mau fokus ke brand sendiri, atau nggak saya bisa fokus ke akademis. Kayak gimana cara nentuinnya gitu dok? Penasaran.
Yang tadi saya bilang, it's not fair for me to make an assessment about how busy you are going to be in your study. And nanti aku bakal telepon sama your parents belum nih. Tapi it's important for you to make an assessment which one is priority. In my humble opinion, you need to focus on your study because that's what you start on. Right? Tapi pada saat kita bicara tentang you have an interest in developing your barangkali skill set dan sebagainya, you can either start mungkin building something out of interest kalau memang itu nggak terlalu ribet-ribet banget gitu, bisa-bisa dikerjain. Saya ingat waktu tingkat 2 dulu, saya sempat waktu lebaran bisnis hamper, really nice. Karena waktu zaman dulu semua itu melalui BUMN. Waktu dulu BUMN nggak kayak kalau sekarang kan mereka segala macam gitu ya. Waktu itu segala macam, kalau itu ya tinggal connect sama orang ininya, programmernya segala macam. Ini order nih segala macam, nggak ngasih tip macam-macam. Cuman kebetulan partner saya itu bosnya di situ, jadi saya bikin 4 partner, adalah yang satu sama lain, gue yang kerja, lo chipin ya, jadi investor. Pada saat itu hampers business is really quite interesting gitu. Jadi ya itu nggak ganggu waktu saya, karena kan tinggal cari supplier, bayar orang buat ngeraping segala macam. Tapi kalau mana yang ngerap sendiri, waktu itu saya pada ngerap sendiri gitu, sampai nggak ada orang yang deliver, akhirnya deliver sendiri gitu kan. Tapi kan waktunya ada. Sekarang memang the intention for you is to get some sort of exposure to this footwear. Then whether this is going to be a short term for you or you have a lot of passion in it. Kalau you have a lot of passion in it, then my suggestion would be adalah tetap jangan lupa ya, you start your study to be but when you have a passion in developing this business, then start engaging slowly, bit by bit, but jangan terlalu rakus gitu. Karena the moment you go up too quickly, then you start to derail about what your intention is. Tapi kalau memang rasanya, okay, this is too good for me to to avoid ya kalau passwordnya ya tergantung kamu masih mau sekolah dokter apa enggak gitu loh. Tapi kalau memang ini bagus banget gitu misalnya ya you have to make that call. It's a very risky decision. You lose some part yang mungkin yang saya bilang tadi, your security as a professional, as a doctor dan lain. Kalau nggak punya kerjaan lagi, you nggak punya buffer gitu, jadi pengangguran.
Perhaps also if you're interested in like about shoes, right?
Yeah.
You could talk with Hansen because he's got a lot of experience there.
So how do you come up with your idea?
So it's quite interesting. Mungkin singkat doang. Soalnya kan saya di sini sebagai maksudnya Ya, cerita lah.
Learning ya.
Jadi awalnya tuh memang saya sebelum mulai SCRB, awalnya jualan pisang dulu dok.
Pisang?
Jadi bapak saya tuh punya kebun, ada yield pisang, buah, durian, manggis, nangka, apapun lah. Nah waktu itu pisangnya tuh banyak banget, saya ingat di selasar rumah saya tuh penuh gitu, penuh dengan pisang, ada pisang mas, pisang raja, pisang kepok lah, apapun, pisang kipas. Akhirnya saya bilang ke adik saya yang memang ya di bagian agrikultur lah, ini sayang banget kita nggak jualan, ya udah kita mulai kayak UMKM kecil lah. Langsung dalam waktu 1 malam saya udah bikin merek, bikin ini, bikin Instagram. Bedanya mungkin zaman sekarang kita tuh enak komunikasi. Kita posting di Instagram seluruh dunia lihat ya, setidaknya Indonesia lihat lah gitu kan. Jadi instan dari situ teman-teman FK saya semua langsung lihat, wah si Hans buka dagang pisang lucu nih gitu kan. Waktu itu saya bahkan ya sebelum ujian UKM PPD lah gitu. Jadi mungkin kalian kurang lebih tahu lah, itu udah lagi siap-siap buat ujian akhir, tapi masih bisa ada waktu untuk dagang pisang. Nah waktu itu masih sendiri nganter sana sini. Akhirnya setelah ya 1 bulan 2 bulan kita udah stable, aku handover ke adik aku. Dia udah bikin sampai sekarang, dia ada platformnya untuk jualan buah. Akhirnya saya di situ pikirin, kira-kira hal apa sih yang dibutuhkan dokter pas lagi COVID ini? Kan maksudnya pakai hazmat, dalamnya nggak enak, kaku gitu. Mungkin zaman dulu kayak baju seragam itu formalitas dok. Oh kita pakai, oh memang harus wajib pakai saat lagi jaga malam di IGD gitu. Nah kita pikirin gimana sih cara nyentuh titik kenyamanan dokter. Soalnya dokter pikirannya apa? Pasien ya, setidaknya pasien ya perut sendiri, pasien gitu. Jadi siapa yang pikirin dokternya? Ya udah, saya pikir kayak ya udah kita bikin seragam supaya dokter itu bisa merasa nyaman sambil bekerja. Gitu dok. Ya,
jadi yang scrub itu sekarang produknya apa aja?
Jadi kita ada medical scrubs, habis itu kita juga sekarang mau masuk ke gown, mau masuk ke Snelly, ya kurang lebih gitu dok.
Jadi marketnya medical professional dong ya?
That's right, medical professionals, mau sampai dari dokter gigi, vet, laboran, ya perawat, kurang lebih sih B2B, B2C gitu.
Tahu marketnya berapa?
Market cap-nya?
Bukan market, potential marketnya.
Itu I heard also like if it can export can be quite a lot as well.
Di Indonesia aja deh.
Kalau Indonesia, especially because he has the advantage of being at UI, itu pasti sudah kalau mau masuk UI itu quite easy. Dan nanti dari UI brandingnya bisa go to the other campuses around Indonesia.
250.000 dokter yang dibutuhkan Indonesia will need export.
And recurring revenue.
That's right. And regenerating every single year. Tapi sebetulnya mungkin di awal saya pikirnya bukan cuannya. Of course cuan itu sekian lah. Tapi memang awal purpose-nya kenyamanan lah.
Iya.
Soalnya saya sendiri merasakan waktu itu istri saya ya maksudnya pacar jadi istri juga merasakan gitu.
Dokter juga.
Dokter. Lagi ambil PPDS dok.
Oh ambil apa?
Di bedah plastik. Iya. Itu sih. Mungkin sangat menarik soalnya poinnya dokter itu saya sering diajak kuliah, entah kenapa saya selalu yang mungkin banyak waktunya kali ya disuruh kuliah sama dokter yang di SPTHT, dokter Erlangga. Betul. Jadi saya selalu diminta untuk kuliah. Nah di situ saya selalu point out waktu itu komoditas, maksudnya aset paling berharga. Ya make sure kita selalu hire yang lebih pintar dari kita untuk mengerjakan apa yang kita tidak bisa. Tapi kita harus tahu seluk-beluknya supaya nggak kena tipu sama yang lebih pintar dari kita. Gitu. Nah, sebetulnya jadi seorang dokter untuk menilai seluk-beluk dan kelicikan orang itu agak sulit. Soalnya betul saya setuju juga sama dokter Ivan. Us medical doctors are inherently kind. We always see the good in people. Tapi when it comes to business, it's a different world gitu. Ya, setidaknya hampir semua hal ya 95% abu-abu lah. You can bend it, you know. Yeah, as long as you can negotiate, everything just goes.
So something is very risky as well because kan medical kan we were generally taught that there's only one route and then all of like majority of students also all follow that route. Tapi just more recently is like the entrepreneurship route a possible other direction that we can take as medical students. Yeah. But majority of organization now is also filled with academic as well. Not too much about entrepreneurship. So that's the first, like we're the first one that trying to push that we can be more open to options, especially because in overseas, a lot of medical doctors also have to like realize about the importance of economics and money.
Yeah.
Because like contohnya di US, to even become a doctor, they have to pay off student loans for the majority of doctors, and that's something that's quite important for them to realize. Usually for medical doctors, we just think, oh kita belajar aja kuliah dokter, and then after that spesialis, and then we're gonna be successful. Tapi the reality is not quite that idealistic lah.
Kalau kita melihat memang yang namanya learning entrepreneurship during your medical school time, menurut saya you start to acknowledge that so many things that we do as a clinician actually inherently number of entrepreneurship karakteristik. Contoh, misalnya, as a surgeon, you take risk every time. Whenever you want to, at some point nanti kalau masuk ke klinis, ya, whenever you do a surgery, ada darah sana, berdarah sini, your brain need to think, what if I stitch that and it bleeds? And if I stop that bleeding, the bleeding comes from the other side. And ternyata begitu saya jahit di situ, ada pipa ureter, kejahit nggak ureter. That's kind of risk-taking decision that you eventually will enjoy, even katakanlah kalian nggak meneruskan di entrepreneurship. But that risk-taking is something that you will be able to utilize and use nanti kalau udah jadi clinician. Tapi again ini ya kalau saya ya dari pengalaman pribadi, kalau looking ke belakang, sebenarnya karakter itu dari semua dokter itu sudah dibangun untuk mempunyai karakter entrepreneurship dari awal. Kayak misalnya manajemen nih contohnya. How do you manage your ward? Pada saat kita manage pasien-pasien di ward kan, itu punya sistem.
Iya.
Ya kan? Then you have your misalnya kayak di RCM deh, you punya ada dokter pimpinannya, punya dokter juniornya. Nanti kalau kita ronde kan lo juga sih ya, lo jagain ini, segala macam. That's also managing people. Managing people is part of entrepreneurship skill. Jadi sebenarnya banyak yang kita akan belajarin yang kalau memang nanti coming to how you want to promote the medical entrepreneurship. Ini pasti ekstrakurikuler ya. Badan. So you can actually share to other people why you want to do this, because it's not necessarily when you join this and you will become an entrepreneur, but you can learn about bagaimana ngasah kita punya skill set entrepreneurship dan nanti akan berguna sebagai clinician. If you are eventually
want to be an entrepreneur, or maybe not entrepreneur but as a clinician, but you still have the skills.
Yeah.
Because I understand what doctor said regarding that you said you have to learn enough in order to be able to, let's say, run a business, but not be the expert. Personally, for me, I think that I have kind of like a jack of all trades type of personality. So I've tried a lot of different hobbies, and I've tried to really dig deep into some of them, but I don't find that I have the talent to be like the best in the world, let's say, like violin or golf or tennis or whatnot. But then what I found is that I'm quite good at a lot of things, but not the best. And I can switch more to this and that. And I think that could be quite useful, especially if you want to run a business. There's a lot of, as like Hansen said, there's a lot of like choke points inside business. Let's say the supply chain, something goes wrong, or you have to be quite active. You have to talk to, let's say, marketing or sales, something wrong, or there's a problem. There's always a problem, and then the CEO always has to deal with everything. That's why they said like CEO is not only chief executive officer, but chief everything officer. You have to deal with everything.
Oke, thank you. Sebelumnya dok cerita. I think it was a really inspiring story to go to Greece. Dan tadi juga sempat lihat Adi sampai ungangan itu mulutnya.
Oke, dia lapar kali.
Mulutnya
I can see stars in his eyes.
This was a truly inspiring story. Very fun. I actually have two questions. So the first one, I think it's more related for us in Break Clinic. So I think we all agree that networking is important, learning entrepreneurship is important as well. But to what degree we should invest time there? Karena I think dokter cerita sebelumnya handle sempat gabung band, terus handle Summit Fest, and all those activities. Do you ever find a moment that you're too invested in those categories? You know, I think as the clinicians, future doctors, if you can do all of that, tapi kalau ditanya obat ini nggak tahu kan, it's a bit, it's not what we do. So to what degrees hal itu bisa membantu dan batasan, I think it's really important for us. Karena kami semua lagi ngalamin lagi banyak kegiatan dan akademik ini jadi akademik dan kegiatan lain, we're really struggling to find the balance. That's the first question. Second question, regarding the more recent news on PDS, specialist, mungkin kalau ada yang dengar kan dan sempat lihat di dokter juga yang the new system hospital based. So, what are your takes on it and how it can really develop us as medical students and give opportunity for us buat growth in entrepreneurship, mungkin karena nanti ini financially lebih stable, how it will may affect us and what are your hopes on us sekarang udah dapat quote-unquote privilege baru ini, and yeah, I think concerning on the PDS, so two questions.
Ya, jadi yang pertama ya, I would like to emphasize the fact that again we reiterate one more time that you. And now my suggestion is it's not coming because I've gone through all this up to this point, but I think being a medical student is learning curve academically to become a person who's supposed to become a good doctor. So as I mentioned that this learning curve to become a doctor is something that you need to put as a priority, in my humble opinion. Because you don't want to waste this opportunity that was given to you. It's not easy to become a doctor. It's not easy, let alone to become a doctor who studied the FCAL. And that opportunity is wasted if you're not using it properly. That's my humble opinion. Okay. Again, all the other things that you do has to be balanced about how you want to empower your skill in the future. And I always say the balance between studying to become a doctor and also studying other things that will complement rather than substitute is something of a concept that needs to be addressed when you are doing these things. Jadi kalau menurut saya memang allocating your time properly is going to be very important. Then other balance kind of life activities. More busy doing things in that. You still have family, you still have to do other things and all, right? So again, saya selalu melihat first priority and then other complementary. And you have to commit yourself what your intention to do with all these things are actually to complement your experience basically. Itu yang pertama. Tapi kalau kita bicara yang kedua tadi, memang Indonesia itu agak ketinggalan jauh. Bulan Februari 2023 saya dipanggil sama Pak Budi. Dr. Ivan, tolong dong presentasi tentang bagaimana pendidikan untuk spesialis di Australia. So I share to him about bahasa Inggris segala macam. Termasuk salah satunya adalah pendidikan atau training menjadi spesialis yang memang setelah kita graduate itu sudah menjadi workforce. Regardless whether you are trainee or not trainee, you are workforce. When you workforce, part of the workforce, then there needs to be balance about what you're contributing and what you're getting as well. Jadi saya bilang, Pak, kalau memang ini idealnya setelah intern itu ada yang bisa kita berikan kepada trainee kita. Saya nggak bilang student, karena PPDS for student.
Yes, resident.
You are a trainee. Yeah. If you're student, you go to ambil master, ambil S3, itu belajar. Tapi kalau menjadi specialist, you are actually a trainee to become something that you be good at. Nah itu memang Anda bekerja di rumah sakit yang semestinya itu adalah bagian dari workforce yang harus dikompensasi.
Betul.
Soal berapa nilai kompensasinya tergantung nanti argumentasi antara yang menurut saya nih role dari ID, role dari profesi, role dari organisasi bilang idealnya kalau orang mau ambil pendidikan spesialis atau presiden tingkat 1, tingkat 2, salary yang ideal sekian. Udah deh, balance, angka yang berapa segala macam. Waktu itu saya ingat pertama kali saya ke Australia, saya agak shock juga. Karena waktu ke sana saya pikir saya mesti bayar, siapin duit segala macam. Di sana, okay, this is your first paycheck. Paycheck what? After a month, actually I was able to buy a car. Wah, mobil jelek, mobil yang butut, nggak ada power steeringnya, nggak ada AC-nya, tapi mobil. Gitu. Dan I could pay rent myself. Wah, ternyata bukan di Australia doang. Di US juga begitu, di UK juga begitu, di Malaysia juga begitu, di Singapura juga begitu, cuma di sini doang. Karena memang kita udah begitu lama dibuat dengan model bahwa kita itu memang harus bisa memberikan kontribusi ke komunitas. I fully agree with that. Tapi saya tidak setuju bahwa kita harus di-exploit kita punya tenaga untuk kita yang semestinya kita tuh menjadi workforce. Workforce dan it's impossible lah. When you're 28 to 9 udah menikah, gak bisa dapat salary, terus hidupin anak gimana? Keluarga gimana? Kalau orang tuanya gak punya duit gimana? Ya kan, akhirnya kan jadi nggak sustainable. Tapi kita bisa mengerti kalau memang ada budget yang mesti disiapkan untuk ini. Dan kalau memang budget dari Pak Budi itu bisa untuk diterapkan sini, tidak perlu. Dan itu bukan hanya di hospital base saja, itu harus applicable as seluruh klinik. So, answer to your question adalah, in my humble opinion, adalah your life as a doctor will be far better in the future. Tapi emang jangan buru-buru karena it will take time to get the model for people to accept. Kalau ini adalah model kita untuk peningkatan dari satu quality of life dari seorang dokter dan juga quality of life for Indonesian patients in general.